Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salam ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'da ayyuhal ikhwa. Praise be to Allah, peace and blessings on His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. May the peace and mercy of Allah be with you all. I've been asked and seen a few people, and others have seen this question circulating because there's been some fatwa by a few being given on this issue, and that is to do with Salatul Jummah. Because of Salatul Jummah not taking place in the mosque, people have asked whether they can hold Salatul Jummah in the home. That's one of the questions, and make a Jama'ah there, or whether they can follow an Imam somewhere through social media online and pray at home behind them through the audiovisual means and have Salatul Jummah. Some have said, because look, there's going to be a long time now and people are not able to get that weekly reminder of spiritual reminder, etc., which is not, and especially in this crisis, we need that kind of spiritual reminder. That's the reason that's been used in regards to this. So here's the answer in regards to that. Firstly, in regards to the spiritual reminder, there is no problem, because as I'm recording now, it doesn't even have to be on a Friday. One can have a spiritual reminder any day that can be sent through social media. People are often listening to spiritual reminders, either audio, through an audio or audio visually. And that can be done on a weekly basis. It can be even done on a Friday, same sort of time where people are expected to be normally at Jummah prayer. So that it's like a link for them. There's no problem with that. Of course, we don't call it the Jummah khutbah per se, but it can be done at that sort of time as well, and any other time of the day. There's no problem with that. So that's overcome in regards to that. As for the salah itself, Salatul Jummah is made obligatory by the Quran, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha nudiya lis-salati min yawmil jum'ati fas'au ila dhikrillahi wa dharul bay'. O you who believe, when the call is made for the prayer of Jummah, إِذَا نُودِيَ لِلصَّلَاةِ صَلَاةِ الْجُمْعَةِ فَاسْعَوْا. That fas'aw means make your way to the remembrance of Allah, meaning to Salatul Jummah, and leave all buying and selling, leave everything else. Salatul Jummah, the idea is that it is to be held. Jummah means a gathering. It has to be held. It is obligatory, and it is obligatory on all males who are baligh, who are adults, as long as they are not ill. It is obligatory, and they are not restricted by certain situations and circumstances, of course, included with that illness, for them to go and pray. Exempt from that obligation, although it can be recommended, is in regards to women and children, etc. So that is to go to the mosque and establish the salah, as was done at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. This ayah, and in fact Surah Al-Jummah, the most popular, and it is agreed upon, was actually revealed in Medina. Some have tried to say that it was made obligatory before that, while the Prophet ﷺ was in Mecca, but we have no evidence for that. This is the ayah making it obligatory, and most likely it then was established in Medina by the Prophet ﷺ, showed how it should be established. Some use a hadith which is mentioned in the Sunan, in Abi Dawud and others, that Jummah was established by permission being taken from the Prophet ﷺ by the Ansar in Medina before the Hijrah, which is mentioned in this hadith. And Asad ibn Zurara from the Ansar led the Sahaba in this particular area amongst the Ansar. Again, it wasn't in a home, in this particular area, district, and 40 of them joined in the Salatul Jummah at that time. This hadith, there's this big difference of opinion, ikhtilaf on its authenticity. And certainly for some it is good and hasan, but because of the ikhtilaf, it is most likely this is da'if, weak, and the weakness of it is, how is Jummah prayer being practiced by Ansar when it is not being medical obligatory yet? Because the surah Al-Jum'ah, which I mentioned earlier, is being revealed later on. That's one of its problems, but it has a problem in its chains as well of report. And secondly, even if it's authentic, this is not the Prophet ﷺ establishing anything. Even if we find some of the Sahaba are doing it, it doesn't give us as an evidence from the Prophet ﷺ as to what he did. Further, even if that is the case, there is no evidence in that to show that you can establish Salatul Jummah in your home. In other words, to use that evidence is superfluous. So one of the questions in regards to home, we have no basis for that. In fact, we cannot do analogical reasoning or qiyas in regards to, if we're not able to go to the mosque, then we should be able to establish and bring the Jummah back home, because that's what we do for Salah. The 5 daily Salah for a minority of the ulama was wajib, obligatory to pray in the mosque, but the majority of the ulama, which is the best opinion, say it is highly recommended for the greater reward to pray that in the mosque. But you are allowed, as we know, to pray the 5 daily prayers at home. Even in Jama'ah at home, there is great reward in that. So we cannot use the 5 daily prayers as a basis and apply that situation to Salatul Jummah. Salatul Jummah is different. Its very meaning and purpose and its name, which is the day of gathering the Muslim community together with the khutbah in the mosque, is the idea of Salatul Jummah. The alternative to it, we find, has been given to us by the Sharia itself. So when the Sharia itself provides a situation where you cannot attend the mosque, either as an individual or as a community, the alternative is already provided by the Sharia. So that's the alternative you use, because in the case of illness, or if you are on a journey, you're away from home, it is no longer obligatory on you. Or beyond that, it's no longer obligatory on you. And what do you pray? You don't pray Jummah when you're a musafir, and you don't have to, you're not then allowed to pray Jummah as a marid, as a person ill at home. No, you pray Dhuhr in its place. That is very clear from the Sharia. And thirdly, we also have from Sharia, from the direct evidence, so there's no room left for ijtihad from ourselves and ibadah in regards to this ibadah. La qiyas fil ibadah. There is no analogical reasoning in regards to ibadat. When we come to ritual worship, we can't use our own minds to, from our minds, bring something new, a new picture, which was never established by the Sharia. And that is praying Jummah at home. There is no basis for it, because we also have the Prophet ﷺ in a couple of hadith, and one Ibn Abbas, both authentic, when it is raining, the Prophet ﷺ telling the mu'adhin to, instead of saying after Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, instead of saying Hayya ala salah, say Sallu fi buyutikum, pray in your homes, called out by the muadhin when it's raining. And in one hadith, actually mentions from one Sahabi, not Ibn Abbas, that actually it wasn't even very heavy rain. Just the bottom of my slippers didn't even get wet properly. But that's what the Prophet ﷺ did, to pray in your places, pray in your homes. And when they prayed in their homes, and this was mentioned in regards to Jummah, yeah, they prayed Dhuhr in their homes. They didn't pray 2 rakahs of Salatul Jummah, but they prayed 4 rakahs of Dhuhr when they are muqim. Of course, musafir prays 2 rakats of Dhuhr, not Salatul Jummah. So when we have that as an evidence, if in the case of rain, the Prophet ﷺ, whether it's heavy or light, even if we want to accept it's heavy, tells the believers not to come to the mosque, but to pray Dhuhr at home, then we say in a situation like this, which is much more severe, much more serious, then that's what we take from. That's what there is more right then to use that as an evidence to pray Dhuhr at home, not to pray Jummah at home. We need to be very clear about that, not to pray Jummah at home. There is no allowance, no new picture that can be given. So when that's already been given clearly from text from the Shari, from Allah and His Messenger, that this is what you do, you don't come with a third opinion unless you have evidence. That in the case of now we have this infection, so why can't we, because it's going on for a while, we'll do something else instead, which is establish Salatul Jummah at home. This would be counted as a bid'ah, an innovation, bid'ah haqiqiyah, an innovation which is going to bring something into religion which didn't come in ritual worship from Allah and His Messenger, and it is not allowed. Beyond that, some people said, okay, so we don't establish it at home, that why can't we just do it through audiovisual? Since in the mosque, we already have the microphones being used. Well, what's the difference between that and this? Well, there is a big difference. The big difference is that it's not about just hearing the voice of the Imam. The microphone is just to augment the voice of the Imam in the same place where there is a gathering. This, of course, applies to 5 daily prayers as well, brothers and sisters. So the idea of a jama'ah, whether it's Salatul Jummah or Salatul Jama'ah, is that the Imam and the ma'mumeen or musallin are all in the same place. They may be separated into different, into hall, big hall, small hall, etc. But the original idea is that they're all gathered in the same place, and that the queues in front, the sufuf, the lines, the rows in front are seen by the people who are behind. So they can hear the Imam, and you can augment that through the microphone, but they should be able to. The original idea for that is for all prayers in Jama'ah, for male and female, as the Prophet ﷺ practiced in the mosque. The Sahabiyah, the women from the Sahaba, were just behind in the same hall, no wall and no barriers. So actually, some we may say, well, you know, nowadays we have women in some mosques and they pray in a separate room. There's a barrier and a wall. So if they can pray with an audio visual in a separate room, why can't they pray at a little bit of a distance in their homes as well? So perhaps you can use that argument, but really it's not acceptable. Why? Because I believe in reality, these putting the screen and putting women in a separate room, even for Salatul Jama'ah, is a question mark, and is a bid'ah really, because it needs for them to be able to see the rows of the men in front and not just being in the same place. That is what is ideal. But still, if mosques are doing that, it's not the same as the women's rows being a few kilometers away in a different distance and scattered all over the place. What kind of jama'ah is that? That is not acceptable as a jama'ah. So even though we may accept women praying in the same place, meaning at the mosque, in a different room through audio visual, although I don't believe that is ideal. But that is still not the same as praying through online means in a different place. That would be an innovation. That would be a bid'ah. It is not Salatul Jama'ah. And I say that, brothers and sisters, even at the Haram, those who have been there, when the Imam is leading and you can hear from the Kaaba and the Haram loudly the recitation and all the takbirat, etc. of Salah. But and I've seen some people who are sitting in their hotel rooms, or standing in their hotel rooms, think that they can, in their hotel rooms, join Salatul Jama'ah at the Haram in that situation, in scenario. That is not acceptable. That is not Salatul Jama'ah. They have to leave their rooms and go and join the queues, the rows, even if the rows are further away from the perimeter of the Kaaba, because the rows in front of them are full all the way to the Kaaba. So they are joining the actual rows, even though they may be at a distance, but not standing in your hotel room in a group or elsewhere. That is not acceptable. That is not Salatul Jama'ah in that regard. So I hope this clarifies the situation in regards to Salatul Jummah. It is not acceptable to pray Salatul Jummah at home. This is not the same as praying Salatul Jummah, by the way. Some may say in schools or in hospitals where a prayer room has been established, which is a public place. Schools is a public place again, with the Imam being there and people coming in. Those are different scenarios. That is not a home situation. And the number of people being in Salatul Jummah is, as some Imams raised, that it can be 3 or 4, according to the Hanafis, of course, which is the best opinion. That is irrelevant. The real issue here is that Salatul Jummah is a public salah, not to be held at home, and the alternative, the home, for those at home has already been given by the Sharia, and we cannot change that. Some people said, why not still call even though we are praying at home, why not have the muaddin still call the adhan in the mosque, as is being done in this hadith, Sallu fi buyutikum, the muaddin is calling out. Well, that's all right, as I said, that's all right if the adhan is being transmitted wider in the community, as in Muslim countries, or some places in this country, in fact, where they've got permission to do the adhan loudly. That's all right to have the muazzin going in, as long as he's not in any danger of catching the infection, to go and do the adhan and say that, if it's being transmitted outside the mosque, to remind the community. But majority of the mosques, as we know, the adhan is just done for inside, for keeping the symbol of the adhan alive. It is not really done to call people to come to the prayer. So it's irrelevant in those situations for the muazzin to go in and call the adhan. For what purpose? He's not calling anybody. He's not reminding anybody by saying Sallu fi buyutikum. We already know that, because the announcement's been made in the communities by those who are in charge of the mosque. So that's what I have to say in regard to that. I want to end with, in regards to, for example, not being able to go to the mosque to pray 5 times a day, and especially in regards to Salatul Jummah, a beautiful hadith that's reported by Bukhari, عن أبي موسى الأشعري قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا مرض العبد أو سافر كتب له مثل ما كان يعمل مقيما صحيحا. It's a beautiful hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said that when a slave or servant either becomes ill or travels, because now the traveler has obviously certain rukhas, meaning they don't have to complete the full prayer, for example, etc., etc. They're not doing the normal things, and same with the ill person, that it is written with Allah, what's recorded with Allah in those situations, what he or she used to do when he or she was healthy or at home and not on a journey. In other words, what does it mean? It means that if we're prevented because of illness or other things, or our crisis, for example, from doing the things that we were normally doing, that is including attending Salatul Jummah, or for those who are attending regular prayers at the mosque, etc. In our situation, the good news is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, glory be to him, is writing down as though we're doing Salatul Jummah or doing our prayer in the mosque. And subhanallah, this is the beauty about this deen, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so merciful to us. If we're sincere, and forgiving to us, always giving us so much more in regards to reward. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us, keep us on Siratul Mustaqim, keep listening to reminders or even recitation of the Quran, brothers and sisters, on audiovisual. That's beautiful, that makes you reflect, and remember to keep remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be vigilant in our salah, and remember, even as a husband and wife, if you're together, to pray salah in jama'ah together, you have 27 times more reward than if you pray it alone. So why would we not want that? So do your utmost to try and do that, even though that's not obligatory, but this is to get more rewards. Barakallahu feekum. I hope it's of use. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us deeper understanding, forgive us for our mistakes, keep us on Siratul Mustaqim. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.